What is going on? Happy Saturday. We have just released a new single with Yung Reece. It's called Dejavu. And I thought, what a better time than the day after it was released to break down the mix and master. All right, first of all, this song was dropped yesterday at noon, and the numbers are already past 50,000 views on YouTube, so the song's doing really well. Yung Reece is a super talented artist. He's right here in LA. So we got to work with him directly, recording, production, writing, mixing, mastering, the full thing. Radium Media took on the whole project, and now I'm here to bring you into the inside of the Pro Tools session and kind of show you the parts, break them down, show you the routing, show you the kind of how we recorded him, you know, how things were done with the drums, the 808, and mainly I'm going to break down the mix and master because that was my main part in this song. The song was produced by Kevin KDE Beggs, partner of mine, my music partner, my business partner, Radium Media. So very talented dude. Also, Dude Clay was on the production as well. So he did I think he did the sample. He had a little sample loop in there. And then Fuzz Rico was on the writing, little pen by Fuzz Rico. She's super talented. She's here in LA from New Jersey. So really great friend of ours. And another thing I want to say right away is that to all my black friends, family, I love you guys and you matter, truly. And I know that right now is a really crazy time, but I have to say that right now. I cannot avoid it. I was crying earlier because I just really couldn't handle what's going on right now. So I love you guys, truly. And if you ever need anything, reach out. I got you. But we're going to break this down. Thank you guys for showing up. This song is a pretty special song. Yung Reece has kind of been messing with us for a little while, and we decided, hey, you should do a single with us. Talk to his management and stuff. And, he's got some plugs with French Montana. That's kind of how we met him, was through French Montana. Kevin was up at French's place and kind of ran into this kid, Yung Reece, one of his managers or something. So shouts to all these guys, and shouts to the business side of things and networking and making relationships, because relationships matter, that's kind of like how the music industry works. So this was recorded at Radium Media with an M49B going through a Neve 500 series custom 1073 preamp. Welcome Philip, welcome Chase, Michael Flores, Johnny Gillespie in the house. All right, so let's get right into it. I don't want to waste any of your guys' time. I want to show you exactly how I routed things, the buses, how I get things really, really loud without them sounding like they're just completely compressed and choked out and dead, right? So if you're liking this, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, drop a like on the video, comment on the video, tell me how much you love it. And let's get rolling. All right, so I'm going to go to the desktop here. Now we're in the Pro Tools session here. I wanted to just kind of break down, I guess, how the work process works. You could see all this stuff, right? These are all the different masters. And this is kind of how we work, right? I make a master, I bounce it, I try to beat the next master, I beat the next master. I mix into the master. So here's my master bus. I'm going to break down everything. My stuff changes all the time. I'm constantly evolving. And if you are not evolving as a artist, producer, engineer, whatever, you need to be constantly evolving. You need to be picking different plugins, trying different things. But don't try anything until you got this stuff down, right? So I'm just going to play you a little bit of the song first, because if you're not familiar with the song, I want you to hear that. So here it is.
Dejavu, wrist stay wet, ain't nothing new. House on the hills, panoramic on the view. too cold. That is drip pistol. I can't sell my soul. Yeah, Cartier frames, I see you. If I was in your place, I'd drop me too. Pull up with a couple like my name Lou. Doing so much, feel like Dejavu. Wrist stay wet, ain't nothing new. House on the hills, panoramic on the view. Pull up with a couple like my name Lou. Doing so much, feel like Dejavu.
All right, so right away you can tell like this is a hot record, right? It's very not only like a dope record hot, but it's also very hot as in levels hot. Now I did that all on purpose, just so you guys know. It is supposed to sound like it's soft clipped a bit, right? So that's kind of the sound I was going for. I wanted it to sound kind of dangerous, kind of like raw and mean, a little aggressive, because it's such like a nonchalant kind of vibe. I wanted like the mix and the sonics of everything to kind of feel a little bit more edgy, you know. This is a young kid, right? So I want him to feel a little bit more important. I want people to take him seriously, right? Especially he's talking about diamonds and icy wrists and, you know, and pulling up in the whip and all that stuff. So I was like, yo, we got to sell that through, right? So that's a big part of the mix and the master for me. So I'm going to get started by just kind of showing you the routing, okay? So straight up, the routing is usually the same for what I'm doing. So here's the vocals. These are dubs. They go to the vocal mix bus, as you can see. All these vocals do. This is Reece's lead track. It was printed through some outboard, things like that. And then you could see some plugins on it, but I'm going to just show you the routing. So the vocal mix, all the vocals go to the vocal mix. Sometimes I route them somewhere else. And then that vocal mix bus, if you roll up here, you're going to see the vocal mix bus here in pink. And then the vocal mix bus is going to have some overall processing for all the vocals, right? And then that goes to the all Vox mix. And the all Vox mix is just going to be nothing. It's just basically somewhere that I can kind of turn things up, turn things down. When I'm making stems, I have an all Vox mix. I'm just hit bounce, right? So I can mute the all instruments, all the drums, and I have just the vocals, okay? So all Vox then goes to the master augs, and the master augs is here, and this is where all my mastering chain is right here. I like to mix into my mastering chain because most of the time the artists that we're working with, whether they're on a major label or not, I want to beat the mastering engineer, right? So I want to like do my own master, and then if they have a budget to send it to mastering, I want to basically say, yo, here's what I had. Can you beat this? And then I would basically just come on to the Ozone 9, and I would come to the maximizer, and I would just take this threshold up a little bit. And I would basically just give them headroom to work with for a mastering engineer, right? But I want the sonics. I want the sonics to be in place. I want them to be fat, full, thick. I want that soft clipping, that kind of distortion that feels good and it feels analog. That's what I want. That's what I'm going for, right? So if you vibe with that, you vibe with how I mix and master. Of course, I've done smooth R&B stuff and pop stuff and, you know, stuff that doesn't really need, I mean, orchestral stuff, right? I don't soft clip the orchestra. But this needed some soft clipping. I needed that. Okay, so that master augs is really important because that goes out the monitor left, right. And then I also have a master, which goes out the monitor left, right. Why? Because these are all the references, right? So I can actually bounce between references and the mix that I'm working on. Super important. So that's my routing. Just wanted to show you that really quick. Now let's get into the drums and kind of like how those are doing, how I'm doing with those. But actually, first let's break down the master augs. What's up, Michael Flores? What's up, Philip? You guys, I appreciate the comments. Show love. Ask questions along the way. It's all good. This should be interactive. I don't want you to feel like you're just watching someone just talking on a video. So if you got questions, hit me. All right, so the master augs, I'm going to break that down because this is a really important part of the chain as I'm kind of like taking the vocals, the instruments, the 808, the drums, and I'm kind of making sub-mixes for each of those things, and then those sub-mixes go to a master augs where they're summing to the stereo, right? So pretty common practice with most mix engineers. I do have a platinum record for mixing. I do have, you know, Grammy, Oscar nominated stuff that I've mixed and mastered. So, you know, I feel like I'm at a pretty good level of mixing and mastering. but of course I can always get better, and I think everyone can. All right, so here's the first thing in my chain on the Master Augs is the Weiss compressor limiter. Now, I've worked with the actual hardware unit for this before. It's called the MK3, and it's a really, really, really expensive hardware mastering unit for limiting, okay? So I wanted you guys to kind of see this. Yo, you're welcome, Brett. What's up? Yeah, so this is kind of like what I'm using this for. A lot of people would use this maybe last in the chain for mastering, but I'm using a lot of stuff for mastering, right? Because I like color. I like color, texture, vibes, harmonics, saturation, fatness, all that stuff. But what this is doing here, okay, so this is actually the compression, like if you're going to be gaining. You can think of this as kind of like, think of this like the threshold on the Ozone 9, okay? So see this threshold here? If I pull it down on the Ozone 9, it's also going to push up the makeup gain, okay? So it's going to make things louder. That's the idea of the Ozone 9, and it's kind of built into that one slider. The Weiss, this is kind of like pushing that down, that threshold down. Now, this threshold is the threshold on the compressor, right? It's saying, hey, where do I want to start compressing? And it gives you a really good readout. I'll show you that. Okay, so there you go. That's kind of like just the threshold. This is the threshold. That's that line showing you where things are at, right? Okay, so this Weiss compressor limiter is really giving me glue. Okay, that's the idea. I want to glue the track together first. So it's not compressing very much. If you saw here, it's just giving me maybe a dB to 2 dB of gain reduction. The knee here is hard to soft, and I'm just kind of keeping it in the middle, okay? Yeah, you got it, Smitty. I'm going to leave this up. It's on YouTube all the time, so watch it, learn from it, do whatever you want with it, okay? What's up, No Lead? Okay, so the ratio, I'm pretty high here. I'm at probably an 8-to-1, 10-to-1 brick wall, okay? The attack is pretty fast, and the release is pretty fast. Now, there's also this parallel mix where I can mix in the parallel. I'm not doing that. This is full-on compressed. So what I'm doing here is I'm just gluing. So if I take this off... here, let's actually do this. Let's show you this by bypassing everything else, right? I'll just bypass all of these, and I'll show you what this first step is doing.
The whole hour, diamonds still shine when the lights out. Spin a nice piece on these frames. You only drop the top when it's nice out. I just took a trip out of Spain. Feeling like Kobe in the pain. Wrist stay wet like a lake. The whole hour, diamonds still shine when the lights out. Spin a nice piece on these frames. You only drop the top when it's nice out. I just took a trip out of Spain. Feeling like Kobe in the pain. Wrist stay wet like a lake. Too much gas, bro.
Okay, so it's very subtle. All it's doing is gluing things together. The kick drum starts to not be so prominent and so in your face. Things start to get like taken down that are so loud, and then things that are like not as loud start to be brought up a little bit. That's it. Very subtle. I'm just giving it some glue. Now, just so you guys know, when I'm mixing into my mastering chain, I look at this all as one unit. So the next thing in my chain I'm going to show you is the BX Digital V3. That's in mid-side, okay? So you have the mono section, you have the stereo section. So here I'm dipping out a little 725. I really don't like 700. If you work with mixing engineers, it's like we listen to music all day long, all the time, and we listen to sonics and frequencies. And, you know, I'm a recording engineer as well. So I've done a ton of recording of different instruments, and I always know which frequencies I hate and which frequencies I love, right? It's just kind of part of the game. You go, it's just like painting, right? You're like, I love these colors and these textures, but I hate these colors and these textures. So that's what I'm doing. I'm taking out that 700 area. I just don't like it. Usually 700 to 900 is kind of like 950. I just don't really like that area. It's just kind of gross, right? And then I'm taking 5K. I'm boosting it just a touch because I want him to be crispy. I want him to be serious, you know? And that's very small, 0.4 dB. And then I got 221, I'm taking out 0.6. You know, you can kind of see here, stereo widening a little bit, 120. The mono maker is super important to this. It basically says 151 hertz and below should go center, like make them mono. That's it. That's what it's doing. It's amazing. I like my low end to be centered and punchy and fat and right there in the middle, okay? And then the sides, the stereo side, is going to be a little dip at 5K because I want the 5K to be focused in the middle. And then I have, a little 500 I'm pushing into the sides by 0.1 dB, a tenth of a dB. And then 252, I'm taking out the sides just a little bit because that can get really chunky. Okay, so no, I don't. Chase, good question. Do you usually aim for 150 on the mono maker? He's asking. No, it's all relative to the song. Sometimes I'll get that all the way up to like 350, 400, right? It just depends on the song. So this one has a lot of bottom. It's like very punchy and fat and full 808. Really big bottom. That was the idea of this record, right? Really big bottom, really cutty vocal that has presence and a lot of demand of attention, right? So, and then the sample's just kind of like there. It's just kind of like floating in the middle there. All right, so I don't usually go to 150. It just depends. Every record's different. You just got to use your ears for that stuff. Okay, and then I'm taking the gain down just a little bit. Gain staging is really important. So gain in is negative 1.5 dB, and then gain out is down by 0.6 dB, okay? So important to all that, okay? And then I'm going to hit the FG red. The FG red pushes the mids forward a little bit for me. It also kind of gives me a little saturation with this drive, which gives me color in that soft clip kind of vibe, which I love, but it's barely doing anything. Here, I'll unmute this. I'll mute my microphone and I'll let you hear what this is doing because it's very, very subtle. Okay, so what that's doing for me is it's making things more focused. It's tightening things up. I started with the glue preset, but I've adjusted things. So the high pass filter here is at 99, so it's letting that punch come through, and it's kind of driving that punch of the kick drum, which is giving me kind of some more saturation. And the mid-range, right? The mid-range is getting pushed forward, but it's also kind of gluing things back a little bit, all right? So the concept is glue, widen and shape, and then glue back again and push forward. And then the Vertigo VSM3, if you know me, you know I love this plugin. Use it on every master. Sometimes I use it on buses, use it on a bunch of stuff. But basically, this is a mid-side processor as well. It's all distortion. Second order harmonic FET crusher, third order harmonic Zener blend, okay? So I'm not going to get into the details of what this thing does, but I'm basically pushing the middle low, okay? I'm keeping all my low end in the center. Very important to what I'm doing with any record. High mids are pushed into the side, and all I'm really doing is shaping some distortion to give it some more thickness, give it more three-dimensional space, give it more depth, give it more width, okay? More life. So let's hear that in and out. It's almost like it gets a new layer, gets a new dimension, right, to everything. It gets a little wider. The sample sounds like it kind of pops up, and it also has more dimension. You can hear the back of the sample, which I love. I just love that plugin. Okay, now Oxford Inflator is going to give me a lot of level. It's going to give me tons of level. The effect I have pretty low, 25%, which is this going to push like the highs and the high mids. Okay, it's going to like mid-forward harmonic saturation, okay? That's the idea. And you can hover over this and it'll tell you exactly what it is. The effect fader sets the amount of the overall inflator effect, which is a bunch of stuff. It's like exciters and distortion, saturation, all sorts of stuff. The curve here is going to be giving, basically the way I think about it is you bring it up It's fatter, it's fuller, it's more low end. You bring it down, it's tighter, it's less low end. That's it. You can hover over it. It'll tell you some crazy marketing jargon, but it'll also give you a little science behind it. I always keep the input at 0 and the output at 0 for this. I just use the effect in the curve. That's just me. Some people like to push the input of the inflator because they like the sound of the transistor. Sounds like you're driving a tranny. I don't do that. Not on the master. I already have tons of color here, right? Okay, now Soothe 2. Really important to my chain. I'm going to start flying through this just a little bit faster because I'm already 28 minutes in. All right, so this is Soothe 2. Really important to this mix especially. But basically, this is like a multi-band compressor dynamic EQ that has like hundreds, maybe thousands of bands. So I tell it which band to really like focus on. That's what this is doing. So it's kind of opposite of an EQ. You boost this, that means it's going to down. It's going to take out or dynamically EQ out those zones. So there again, I'm at the 865. I'm trying to scoop that mid-range area that I just really don't like. Okay, really important that I have this on ultra when I'm bouncing offline and usually high on real time so I can hear it. And this soft algorithm and the depth is like at 0.1. So it's not doing much, but it's cleaning up my mids, my low mids, and it's really, really fattening up the record and keeping things tight. Okay, next, Gullfoss. Very important to this mix. It's sort of like making that smiley face curve, right, with the boost, 1.7. I'm taming some stuff, which is basically like taming things to show more separation in the mix, and I'm just doing a little bit of recovery. This is very subtle. The brightness, I'm taking it down 0.1. That's it. This is a very dynamic, very intelligent EQ. So if you got the dough, pick it up. It's $300. Okay, Limitless. Amazing, unbelievable plugin. And I picked this up from Dave Pensato. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm saying, hey, this is a multi-band compressor, dynamic EQ, like kind of married with a limiter, okay? So you can kind of shape before you limit. I hope that makes sense. So I'm shaping, and then I'm pulling this threshold down to limit. And the ceiling is at 0.3. And this is also giving me like a really nice, like soft harmonic crunch, right? It's giving me a ton of gain too. Like this is doing a lot of work. I'll just show you.
The whole hour, diamonds still shine when the lights out. Spin a nice piece on these frames. You only drop the top when it's nice out. I just took a trip out of Spain. Feeling like Kobe in the pain. Wrist stay wet like a lake. Too much the whole hour. Diamonds still shine when the lights out. Spin a nice piece on these frames. You only drop the top when it's nice out. I just took a trip out of Spain. Feeling like Kobe in the pain. Wrist stay wet like a lake. Too much gas propane.
So this kind of like pushes that 500 area, which, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, that sounds congested and it just doesn't, it sounds weird. It's like, no, that's like the vocal, you know? The vocal's like, ha, ha, like it's like that body of the vocal. And I love that. I think it pushes the vocal forward. It makes it more pronounced. It makes it more important. And actually, if you understand 500 hertz, 500 to 600 hertz is where you get a lot of depth, but it's also where you get a lot of loudness, like perceived loudness. Okay, you want a loud record, you push that area. You be really careful with the top here because it'll pierce your ears as you turn things up. And you got to be really careful with the punchy area, the 95, 100 to 50 kind of area. And you got to really control that low end because that's a ton of voltage hitting limiters, right? That's how you get loudness. That's it. Perceived loudness is in the mid-range. And the 500 is a great place to do it because once you get into like 1K, 2K, those can start being ear-piercing. And they can kind of like, when you turn it up in a club or something, then people are like, oh, this song kind of bugs me for some reason. Psychoacoustics, guys. Got to learn it. Very, very important. All right. And then the last thing we got here is the Ozone 9. I do this for some shaping. Again, I'm just shaping things, right? So again, I'm coming here to 541. So I'm coming up a little bit above 500 and I'm taking down just a touch. I am taking down and controlling that 288. I'm just shaping as I go, right? The shaping is super important to feed the last, stuff. Everything's working together. 75 hertz and below, just 0.2 of a dB, and I'm boosting just a touch here at the top, 17, half a dB. And I mean, we're into mastering now. This is the last step of mastering, right? Dynamic EQ, 372, taking out a little bit more of that box and that congestion. I'm controlling just a touch at 36 hertz. And of course, because I want to get a little bit more voltage so I can get a little louder. That's what I'm doing throughout this whole thing. All right. And then the bell here at 673. I really just didn't like this area of the record. The 600 to the 800, 900, don't like it. And then same thing here. I don't want to pierce people's faces off. So I took that 2300 down, and then 1200, I just dipped it a little bit. So it's just a little controlled, a little softened up. And then the mastering, I usually keep it on modern. That's something I really like. And then I hit this threshold pretty hard, ceiling at 0.2. That's a loud record. And then fast. So I go pretty fast here. And that's it. Transient, little emphasis on transients, and I'm done. That's my mastering chain. You guys got any questions about that? You liking this so far? Show me some thumbs up. Show me some love. Show me that you're alive right now. Because I know a lot of this stuff can go over some people's heads, and it's okay. Maybe you're just taking notes like, oh, I love that plugin. I might want to get that plugin. You don't need a bunch of plugins, believe me. Not unless you've been doing this for 15 years or so, or more. You don't need all these plugins. All right, so now let's get into some drums. So the drums are really important to this record, obviously, right? So the kick drum, I have some Neutron 3. Just going to kind of bang through these, okay? A little equalization, pushing that bottom, pushing a little bit. Oh, that's not even on. Not doing anything. And then I'm dipping a little bit here at 926. So that kick drum's not supposed to be as punchy. This record didn't call for like a really punchy kick drum because it should be like a kind of floppy, kind of laid back kind of vibe. All right, transient shaper, little bit of the attack and a little less sustain. And then the compressor, I'm attacking. I'm doing a little bit of that, right? So that's what the Neutron's doing. The Neutron then feeds the Pro Q3, which I then go boost even more of that low stuff, right? And I take out a little more of that punch. So the more of that, I'm taking more of that out, and I'm going down here, right? That's what I'm doing. I'm getting rid of some voltage at the bottom. That's it. All right. And then we're going to kick parallel. I'm pushing into a kick parallel. The kick parallel bus is this. It's going to be pretty fast. It's going to give me some punch and attack, but it's also going to give me some, that's where the kick is. And then the Pro Q3 giving me a little bit of, here's the kick, okay? And then I'm taking down some of this stuff because this is in the original kick, so I don't need it. And again, sweeping out everything under 33. Just let me know if you guys have any questions at all as I'm going. Really important you understand like the routing and you understand the processing and what's going on. So this kick bus then goes to EQ P1A where I boost and attenuate 30 hertz, which usually gives me a nice little thick fullness down kind of in the sub area. But I feel like it pushes it up to like 40 and 50, which is really nice for me. I like that area. And then the bandwidth, a little broad, and then just a touch. Like there's like a very small boost here at 3K, just to give me some definition there. Okay, and then that kick bus goes to the drum mix. Okay, the drum mix has 8 of these NLS buses on them, right? So you got 8 of these guys. They're all every single different one, spike, mic, and Nevo. So they just go spike, mic, Nevo, spike, mic, Nevo. 4 times there. I got a Pro Q3. I kind of shape whatever that's coming out. Again, I take out anything that I can get here, okay? Super important. And then I got 4 more NLS buses. I know. You're like, what? Why? So basically this idea came from Jason Joshua. And Jason Joshua got it from like this guy named White Boy Mike, who's like I don't know, some engineer that did this. Pretty crazy. If I kill all these, you just hear the drums collapse. But it gives me like a nice, like kind of like you're pushing a G series SSL. And then I'm shaping a little bit more here, okay? So you can see kind of what I'm doing. Really important. Did you EQ twice on the kick because the API may have added extra low end with compression? On the kick drum, I think you're talking about with the kick, it's doing this, but then it's going to a kick bus. And the kick bus is doing the EQ P1A. The EQ P1A just gives me a really nice color on my kick, okay? So it's doing a different EQ that no EQ can really do. And obviously I could have just put it right here on the kick bus or on the actual kick, but I actually really, really like it on the kick bus. Like I think this is kind of the glue for the kick for me, and then it goes to the drum mix. So I don't know. It's just part of like what I'm doing. Sometimes I'll throw an EQ here. Sometimes I'll throw it directly on the kick. Just depends. I just like kind of made that decision. Yeah, Mexican mic, exactly. That's awesome. So basically that drum mix then feeds all these, and then this goes to, this is pushing to a louder send, which the louder send is an MV2, which is really just like, it's like parallel compression. That's all I'm doing. I'm bringing like overall perceived loudness into the mix. I'm taking down the high level stuff and bringing up the low level information. Okay, super important to understand. That's how you get loud records. Okay, and then here I'm shaping it and getting rid of stuff. I'm just shaping as I go. All the time I'm just shaping. It's like a painter, like putting, you're putting highlights and accents on things, and then you're going back and like painting over it, and then you're highlighting a different area because, you didn't like the way that stroke worked or whatever. Okay, so that louder then goes to all drums. The drum mix goes to the drum master. The drum master has the R bass, which is an amazing tool for perceived loudness and thickness in the low end, and that's at 80 hertz. I gained it down a little bit, and just a touch of that. Just give me some more thickness at the bottom. The Shadow Hills Industry, amazing. Adds color, pushes the mids forward, gives me more perceived volume. Love it. Awesome. D3 expansion. This is gating out all the noise because a lot of noise is going to be building up. So this is just the gate. And you can see here, release at 2 seconds. So anytime like something's not playing, the drums aren't playing, it's going to go, it's going to take down all that from all these plugins, which are analog, like they're modeling analog parts. So it's going to be fucking really, really loud. Okay, so black box analog designs, amazing. One of my favorites. Thickness in the peno, thickness in the triode, lighter on the saturation. Yeah, amazing. This is going to make things stand out. It's going to add harmonics, basically making my drums stand up to attention. Again, got that from Jason Joshua and some other guys. Amazing stuff. BX Digital, just take out the middle. This is the mono section, stereo section. Make more room for the vocals at 3.85. Take down 1 dB in the middle. Okay. And then it looks like I had just maybe too much, so I kind of brought down a shelf at 112. So just a little much on the low end on the drums, so I just brought it down a little bit. Just shelved it down, controlling things as I go. I don't want to change the color. I don't want to change the gain staging of all these plugins going into each other and driving each other. So I use this to kind of shape what I've already colored and driven. Super important, right? So 110 on the stereo width. That's all I'm doing. I'm just widening a little bit, and I'm shaping the middle. Okay, so that's the drum master. Okay, so that's like kick drum, all that stuff, louder, and then you also have a transformer send from the drum mix. The transformer send I also got from Jason Joshua. I admit, I ripped him off a lot on this one. But it's okay. He ripped off a bunch of people, I'm sure, with all this stuff as well. So that's how it works. That's real art right there. Okay, so, and plus, if you just copy all this anyway, you're never going to sound like the way this record sounds, or you're never going to sound like Jason Joshua. We just all sound different. We have different ears, we mix different, we master different, and we're all at different levels, right? So this is driving a little bit, tones down a little bit. I'm on the pentode. This is just like a tube saturation, and I'm distorting. That's what it's doing. It's distorting the crap out of stuff. And then this is the SSL. It's compressing. They call this the Dr. Dre, right? The cross eyes. 30 on the attack and 0.1 on the release. Really quick, like basically letting the transient through and then releasing quickly. And then 2 to 1. And that's doing probably about 4 dB of compression. Now you're like, why are you sending that transformer? And then you got a distortion, right? So that's Slate Digital stuff, distortion, and then Pro Q3, sweeping everything out up to 1921. Why? Because this is your life. This is your transients. That's your transients. It's going to give you transient information. So I'm going to show you what that's doing. I'm going to bypass it in and out and just listen. Hopefully you guys are listening on some good headphones or a good monitor system, because you won't be able to hear any of this if not. Okay? Here it is.
If I was in your place, I'd try me too. Pull up with a couple like my name Lou. Doing so much, feel like Dejavu. Wrist much gas, propane. If I was in your place, I'd try me too. Pull up with a couple like my name Lou. Doing so much, feel like Dejavu. Wrist stay wet, ain't nothing new. House on the hills, panoramic on the view. Pull up with a couple like my name Lou. Doing so much, feel like Dejavu.
Okay, so like that, the transient of the hi-hats, of the snare, even the kick drum, they kind of pop out more. It's like your life, you know, that's your transient. That's how you make things sound loud, right? You want just those transients to pop out. I don't want to like send everything to a transformer and like, you know, sweep out everything at the bottom and just have that going. Like that'd be crazy, right? So those are the transients. Those are going to like kind of push everything forward. It makes the drums stand at attention. Without it, it sounds kind of dull. Sounds kind of like, that's good, I guess. But when you listen to it, you know, compared, you're like, oh, definitely the transformer. Like that shit pops. It makes it sound like a record. So that's it. And then the louder is going to give you that thickness. It's going to bring everything up, right? Hey, thanks, Philip. Appreciate that. Appreciate all you guys' comments, all your likes. You know, if you like the actual video, it helps me a lot. Helps push it through the algorithm. So smash that like button. That's what all the YouTubers do. Smash that like button. I always feel like such a goof saying shit like that, but truly, I'm trying to help more people get more eyes and ears on this stuff so you guys can kind of learn more and stuff with this. Okay, so louder, and then I got an instrument mix. So that's the drums. Like literally, I just showed you the kick, but let's go into the 808 because the kick and the 808 are really the most important stuff. I won't get too in detail with the drums because we're 45 minutes in. And I really don't want to like go too crazy with this or else no one's going to keep watching it. And then I get really bad viewership on the video. Yeah. So thanks, Albert. Appreciate it. So basically the 808 low, this is a pretty typical thing for me is I like to control it with the ozone. I took out a lot of this area because I wanted to leave it for the kick. I have dynamics. I'm doing just a little touch here on the low. On the rest of it, I'm controlling even more. So you can see limiter open, limiter compressed pretty hard, right? So this is super important. This is kind of controlling my 808 and shaping it. And I'll kind of A-B that so you guys can hear it.
If I was in your place, I'd try me too. Pull up with a couple like my name Lou. Doing so much, feel like Dejavu. Wrist stay wet, ain't nothing new. House on the hills, panoramic on the view. Pull up with a couple like my name Lou. Doing so much, feel like Dejavu. I'ma need a check if I go out. Mortgage on my neck, gotta show out. She talk too much, get the whole out. Diamonds still shine when the lights out. Spin a nice piece on these frames. You only drop the top when it's nice out. I just took a trip out of Spain.
So you notice I'm not losing any notes on the 808. It's tighter. It's not clipping anything. It's not like this, like this monster. Thanks, Marshall. I really appreciate that. Michael, I'll hit you up, man. But, I mean, you got to tell me a reason to call you. I'm not trying to call a bunch of people all the time. So this is really controlling it, right? Imager. I'm taking the low again, keeping it centered. That's what I'm doing here. I'm stereoizing just a little bit of this band, this 247 and above. Just pushing it a little bit width and stereoizing it. That's it. Vintage limiter, giving it a little bit of the ceiling there, keeping it tight because it's going to hit other, limiters, compressors, and the low end really has to be controlled. Now, really important part about this is the max bass, of course. I'm giving it some more thickness and fullness down there. But the 808 bus is doing a bunch too, right? You see all that? So the C4 is like taking down all the bullshit up here because like what I realize with a lot of 808s that I get from producers, whether they're good producers or not, I don't really care. Kevin did the 808s and stuff on this, but like I just do not ever like the distortion on the 808s they send. It's just like kind of garbage. So it never translates in a mix. It's really fun to think that it does. It sounds great in a production, but I usually just get rid of it. I get rid of it, all the top distortion stuff, and I build my own and make my own distortion. Okay. And how do I do that? I have the 808 low. I have the 808 high. The 808 high, I'm sweeping out everything down here. So it's really just the low sub stuff. I'm hitting the 808 Ibanez Screamer. And then I'm going in here and I'm just bringing in this. So this is what this sounds like. And this is my own distortion on the 808. So a really fun part about that is basically taking harmonic distortion and harmonics just in general and going like this. Like you have these harmonics and you have these harmonics and going like this with them. Okay. Fill in the gaps. Make your own harmonic distortion. Do something really cool. Make it more, where you can almost go even and odd harmonics, which is really fun, right? Because like then it makes a whole new tone. Sounds fatter to me. Also, it translates to smaller speakers. If you hear this on laptop speakers, on a phone, you're going to hear the 808. You're going to know the 808's there. It's going to sound thick and full on a phone speaker, on a laptop speaker, on a small system, on a mono speaker, right? You're like, damn, that 808 sounds dope. Damn, this record sounds sick. Then you bring it into $1 million studio, and you're like, wow, it's got a really big bottom that's shaking, like the sub is shaking my chest. Super important. You got to have all of it. So the 808 is really important trap music. I've mixed so many trap records. You guys have no idea. If I opened up my hard drives, plural, you'd be like, damn, that's a lot of trap records. That's a lot of 808s and kick relationships you've done. So the 808 bus, I'm not even bragging. I'm just saying, like, I've done so many trap records. It's unbelievable. 808 bus is going to be the C4, taking down that high, like, you know what I mean? All that stuff. I'm limiting, so I'm really controlling the 808. I'm taking these low and the high. So I duplicated the 808, just so you know, and then I shaped them. And then I brought them to a bus to shape them more. And then the MC404, you can see here is the threshold on the low mids. I didn't want it to be too punchy. I wanted it to be more like floppy, right? Let the low end through, the sub stuff through. But everything from 100 to, let's see, like 1.5, 2K, that's like, let's control that a little bit more. Right? Let the kick take that punch, basically. That's the idea. All right, so that's the 808. Really important. Then it goes to the 808 bus. 808 bus goes to the drum mix. Now, I don't typically do this in a mix, but this one felt like it needed it. The 808 needed to be just as loud, present, demanding as all the drums. So I shaped everything from here to go to the drum mix, which again, you understand the drum mix goes to the drum master, goes to all drums, go to the master augs, okay? So it's going through all of this. It's a lot of stuff, but the 808's really important to this track. So that's it. Those are the drums. 808, snare, you can just look like rims. I didn't touch these much. Snare bus, I have a little bit of compression, give it a little more attack, like, super simple stuff. Rim, some neutron, just kind of shaping it a little bit. I like neutron for shaping. I like this sculptor. I think it's really cool. It's an interesting concept. Equalizer, pushing a little bit of that, took that down. Don't know why I did that, but excitement, exciter, have that going. So I'm just pushing this band. And then, so you know what an exciter does. That's pretty basic here, but I'm basically taking everything above 200. Compressor, doing a light compression here, even though it's a 6-to-1. And 100% mix, no makeup gain, just compressing it, kind of tightening it up. Snare snap bus. This is something that's kind of interesting, something that I just kind of designed. The VBC rack, I sometimes have all three of these on, but this actually does a really good job, the FG Gray, of giving me a crazy transient, okay? It's like a kung, kung, like it just really brings out the transient. So I brought the attack really fast, 0.3, high pass filter, and I'm just basically taking this and sending it. It's also going to the snare bus, and I'm doing some lo-fi here. So I'm taking it to 18 bits, sample rate, lowering the sample rate, and a little bit of distortion, a little bit of saturation, and it's just incredible. I love the snare snap. It basically makes the snare stand up, and you'll see. I'll play it for you.
Cartier frames, I see you. If I was in your place, I'd try me too. Pull up with a couple like my name Lou. Doing so much, feel like Dejavu. Wrist stay wet, ain't nothing new. House on the hills, panoramic on the view. Pull up with a couple like my name Lou. Doing so much, feel like Dejavu. I'ma need a check if I go out. Mortgage on my neck, gotta show out. She talk too much, get the whole out. Diamonds still shine when the lights out.
So it really like thickens the snare too. It like makes it like konsh, konsh. Like it makes it thick. I love that. So that's really important to a good snare. I didn't want this little tiny tingy thing that's going to hurt your ears and make your ears ring and bleed. You have to remember, records like this, people play them really loud. So that's really important. You got to make sure that they can play loud. Okay. So, and people can't have their ears bleeding because there's so much high end and high mids, and the snare is just cutting their face off, right? So that's the idea there. And then the drum verb, Valhalla Room. Everybody knows this plugin. It's incredible. Valhalla makes awesome reverbs. Just touching that goes to all drums. And then hats, I just sweeped out some bullshit at the bottom. Nothing crazy. Open hat. I don't usually like touch perk and like hats very often when it comes to trap music. Like, why? Oh, I'm gonna go shape those hats that they already have crispy and trap like, you know, like, and why? I don't need to touch them. Like, it's going to drum mix anyway. Like, they're marrying. I balance the level. Like, you guys, sometimes like, here's the thing about mixing is like, you get so seduced by the idea that like everything you do matters, and then you have to put plugins, or you have to run things through Outboard, or you have to do something, or else you're not like doing your job as an engineer. That's all bullshit, guys. Like, it's unbelievable how many engineers like that are at the top won't even touch most sounds. If a producer has a great sound, you don't like go mess with it. Like, oh, I got to make sure that has a EQ, a compressor, a reverb on it. I got to throw it to a delay. Like, that's what makes you an amateur sometimes, you know? It's like, I get really like, should I touch that? Should I do some stuff? Oh, should I put that through lo-fi? Should I compress that a little bit? And then I'm like, no, why? It's fine. It's a hi-hat. It's a trap hi-hat. Like, oh, I need to compress that. No, I don't. You hear it fine. So don't touch that shit. Like, all I'm usually doing is like just making up for, you know, I don't want anything at the bottom. I don't want any rumble. Nothing taking up my voltage, because that'll make the record quieter, basically. So perk, like little stuff like that. Drum verb, little drum verb, but it's going to the drum mix, which you already know. There's tons of processing there. It's gluing the drum kit together. Now here's a sample. This track is Frozen. Doubler, BX Digital, LA2A. Kevin did all this, actually, this stuff. Okay, and then he has some Goldfoss on it, which is an interesting move. I usually only use Goldfoss on the master, but it seems like he wanted to use it on this, maybe to, you know, give it a little smiley face curve. I don't know. But here's the sample. I'll play that soloed. And then, you know, this was given to me. The sample and the sample too. Kevin already did that stuff. I was like, okay. So I'm shaping everything around that sample. All good.
Pull up with a couple like my name Lou. Do it so much, feel like Dejavu. Wrist stay wet, ain't nothing new. House on the hills, panoramic on the view. Pull up with a couple like my name Lou. Do it so much, feel like Dejavu. I'ma need a check if I go out. Mortgage on my neck, gotta show out. She talk too much, the whole out. Diamonds still shine when the lights out. Spin a nice piece on these frames. You only drive.
All right, so that was already there. Like, I was like, yo, that's great. I love that. Sample's dope. Good, you know, shouts to Dude Clay. He made that sample, that loop. So, you know, kind of like what the track was started with, right? So since we're coming up on an hour, I'm actually going to just kind of open it up to some Q&A. I'm not going to get into the vocals, and I'll do a part 2 with just the vocals, because the vocals are really, really important to this track. And I want to give you guys like the full rundown of the vocals, as well as like the dubs that Fuzz Rico has in here. The writer on this song. But if you guys haven't already, give me a like on the video, drop a comment, you know, show some love. What did you guys learn from this? Did you learn anything? Do you like it? Do you want me to mix your record? Do you want me to mix and master your record? You know, I'm always available to mix and master records for the right price, for the right record. So hit me up. Also, if you want to get more into mixing and mastering yourself, we have a beat mixing masterclass and a vocal mixing masterclass that are very in-depth, from the edit to the mixing and mastering of the vocals and the beat. So if you guys want to pick those up, I have a link in the description here, and you can grab those, and they're $20. There you go. Can you talk about the gate because of hiss from plugins earlier? Yeah, so that's all it is, Chase. Just 100%. That's, you just said it. You're like, can you talk about that? Yeah, so basically, I'll talk about it a little bit, but it's very basic. So the drums go to the drum mix. The drum mix goes to the drum master. As you can see, there's an NLS bus. There's 8 of them on the drum mix, okay? There is 8 NLS buses. There are the R bass and this Shadow Hills mastering compressor, and then I'm gating, right? So the reason I'm gating is because think about all that hiss that's going to come from these plugins, right? You can't even control that because those are like console emulations. Consoles have hiss. It's analog. So all I'm doing is when the drums aren't playing, that's just gating. That's it. And look, 2-second release, which means, okay, drums stop hitting. It goes boom, 1, 2, gate closes, right? So you got some time. It's always open. It's open. It's always open when the drums are playing, and it closes slowly when the drums stop playing. That's it. That's what you got to know. So you're just getting rid of the hiss when there's no drums playing. All right, that's it. You guys have any other questions? Definitely go run up the song. It's on YouTube. It's past 50,000 views in a day. I think it's probably around like 55 or 60 by now, right? But you guys, hopefully you enjoyed this. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm going to be doing these things all the time. The next version of this, the part 2, I'm going to break down the vocals. I'm going to break down the writing. I'm going to break down the song, what it was, how it came about, what we were doing, what we were thinking, and how I got involved with the mix and master, okay? Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Show some more love, show some support, and I love you guys. I hope you guys really stay safe. Things are crazy out there. Stay hungry for knowledge, keep learning and keep fighting, and, just try to grow and improve every day. And if you're making records and you're mixing, you're mastering, you're trying to improve your music game, that's what it's all about. Are we mixing vocals? We will on part 2, because I'm at 53 minutes. I don't think a lot of people want to watch a 2-hour video on YouTube about the whole mix. So I'm going to do a part 2 on the vocals to answer your question, Nucci, because that's going to be an important part. But this one was all about the master chain, the bussing, the drums, the 808, and the sample. So if you guys really like this, show some love. Go back on it. There's a ton of gems in there. I show you all my plugins, gain staging, all that stuff. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. It was great hanging out with you guys. Happy Saturday. Peace out.